Some of the moral and ethical dilemmas, such as abortion, the death penalty, and euthanasia, can be witnessed in the political party system. When it comes to the topic of abortion, the Democratic Party usually sides with pro-choice. They see women as having the right over their bodies and therefore should have the choice to decide what they do with what is going on inside of their bodies. The Republican Party, however, is usually pro-life. They believe that the unborn baby inside the woman is already a living person and therefore has the same right to life as any other living person. When it comes to the death penalty, the roles seem to switch, as the Democratic Party usually vies for abolishing the death penalty in order to spare lives. The Republican Party usually tends to argue that the death penalty is the only punishment for certain crimes. Euthanasia, or assisted suicide, is another area in which the two political parties split. The Democratic Party argues that a person should have the right to choose whether they would like to be put out of their misery or have a family member make that decision for them. The Republican Party usually sees this as murder and therefore tries to protect life. These are all the typical ways that the political parties stand. However, specific people can believe in different ways. This is the problem with natural law ethics. People can reason differently on issues of moral concern. It then turns the world into a big game of lifeboat, which is a game played in which people choose whose life is worth living and saving, whose is not, who can die, and who should die. This is why there should be an authority on ethical and moral decisions in which the Bible seems to fit perfectly. The divine command theory states that we act morally when we follow God's command. Those that hold to this state that what is right and good is defined by God's will. This places emphasis on the standards that are in the Bible. When on the topic of abortion, one can look to Jeremiah 1:5 and find out what God thinks about when life happens. It reads, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. I ordained you a prophet to the nations." Genesis 25:22a states, "But the children struggled together within her." This shows that the Bible views children as being even those who are still in the womb. 2 Kings 16:2-3 says, "Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, and he did not do what was right in the sight of the Lord his God, as his father David had done. But he walked in the way of the kings of Israel. Indeed, he made his son pass through the fire, according to the abominations of the nations whom the Lord had cast out from before the children of Israel." This shows that by sacrificing his child, he did not do what was right in the sight of the Lord. With these verses, we can see that according to the divine command theory, abortion is wrong. With euthanasia, we find the answer in Exodus 20:13 with the simple command, "You shall not murder." Murder is seen in the Bible as the intentional and premeditated killing of another human. Therefore, euthanasia would be considered murder. Regarding the death penalty, Romans 13:4 says, "For he is God's minister to you for good. But if you do evil, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain, for he is God's minister, an avenger to execute wrath on him who practices evil." This is talking about governing officials having the right to practice capital punishment. However, Romans 12:17 through 20 says, "Repay no one evil for evil. Have regard for good things in the sight of all men. If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath, for it is written, 'Vengeance is mine, I will repay,' says the Lord." Therefore, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him a drink, for in doing so you will heap coals of fire on his head. These verses show that the death penalty is the right of the government. However, it does not have to be enacted, nor do people have to request it. For as Jesus teaches, we are to forgive others so that we can also be forgiven.